Go ahead. Kamala has no time to answer pesky questions.
In today's video, after Jessica Taroff makes a fatal mistake, the show ends abruptly. When Greg Gutfeld and Jessica Taroff get into a heated argument about Kamala Harris's latest economic plans, including topics like growing costs, live tensions begin. The cost of drugs and housing affordability, however, Gutfeld vehemently condemns Harris's approach, claiming it is unrealistic and harmful to the economy, while Tarlow defends Harris's record by emphasizing her focus on middle-class issues and policy reform. The conversation broadens to cover Harris and Trump's opposing economic views, free market principles, and government interference. Look at it.
Called price gouging. I mean, the crazy part of it is that it's about supply and demand, Jessica, and Republican and Democrat economists agree that, price gouging is something that generally doesn't end up very well. Yeah. But she was, and Kamala talks about her being the attorney general, and I prosecuted these cases. Why? And the reason she's alleging it, she wants a federal ban, is because it's price gouging. It's all prosecuted by the states. Why didn't she call the individual attorneys general together and say, she's been there 3.5 years. Let's get together and deal with this price gouging. All of you, for each of your states, the White House will help you price gouge and find out who should be prosecuted. But no, she waits until now.
Idea. And I hope that Kamala is watching. We have read that she likes the show, and I hope that she takes that advice. I think part of the reason that this is coming right now is actually twofold. So one, this is the Kamala Harris top of the ticket. This is something that's a priority for her. She had a markedly different tone in discussing these issues than President Biden did. I never heard President Biden acknowledge that bread is up 50%, for instance. She's obviously fashioning herself differently in that way. The second part of this is, it was just in March that the FTC report, it was called Feeding America in Time of Crisis, came out. And they actually identified the fact that companies like Walmart, like Kroger, like Tyson were reaping profits so far above the supply chain problems that they had to call it out, and that's what led to this policy coming into being. So that's what she's going from. And I would also say that you could look at this as antitrust enforcement rather than price controls. And she hasn't been specific about that difference. And if it is antitrust enforcement, that's something that's very in line with who Kamala Harris is and who she has been throughout her career. Net, I think that this was an incredibly good day for Kamala. She was able to introduce herself to the American public in a way that she hadn't been.
Kamala Harris's economic plan is presented by Jessica Taroff, who highlights key initiatives such as opposing price gouging and proposing the construction of 3 million new homes. Taroff argues that Harris is deliberately differentiating herself from President Biden, especially in her policy tone, by highlighting her personal connection to the middle-class struggle. She draws attention to Harris's education and work history, especially her time at McDonald's, in an effort to relate to everyday Americans who are struggling financially. Harris's strategy also includes popularity measures like prescription medication price caps that aim to lessen the financial burden on working-class residents.
And you take the contrast of yesterday. So you had President Trump, someone who grew up a millionaire, became a billionaire, standing in front of his golf club, ranting and raving about everything, lying about everything from, GDP rates to poverty rates to energy production, et cetera. And then you have Kamala Harris, someone who's talking about her middle-class upbringing, the fact that her family rented throughout their lives, so she knows what it means for people out there who can't get on the property ladder, someone who worked at McDonald's through college. You couldn't have the starker juxtaposition between these two candidates. And then on top of it, she's saying to people, I feel your pain. I know how much things cost. You know what I want to do? I want to build 3 million new housing units. You know what I want to do? I want to cap prescription drug prices for everyone, not just Medicare recipients. I mean, yesterday, we didn't get to talk about it because of the Trump press conference, but because Medicare is negotiating drug prices, seniors will get to keep $6 billion of their dollars. That's $1.5 billion in out-of-pocket costs that will be saved because of the policies from the Biden-Harris administration. And that's what today is about regular people getting to keep more of their money.
Greg, antitrust enforcement that Jessica talks about is really not the issue if we're talking about many different supermarkets, many different meat markets. Competition is the essence of capitalism. We're not dealing with.
Tarlow draws a sharp contrast between Harris and Trump. She presents Harris as a leader from a middle-class background who truly understands the struggles of everyday Americans, while portraying Trump as a wealthy, disconnected figure. Tarlow highlights Harris's focus on renters and working-class issues, in contrast to Trump, who she describes as ranting and out of touch with regular people. In response, Gutfeld fires back, arguing that Trump's wealth and business success give him far more credibility on economic matters. He says, "I would rather listen to someone who started as a millionaire and became a billionaire than someone who doesn't have a clue about economics." This fiery exchange shows their clear ideological divide over what really qualifies a leader to guide the economy.
Trump began as a millionaire and now he's a billionaire. I think that makes him an expert in this. I would rather listen to somebody who began as a millionaire and is now a billionaire than somebody who doesn't have a damn clue about economics. I've never heard a candidate today more unsure of themselves on a topic than Kamala Harris. I think she's been burdened by the weight of expectations put on her by the media. I've never seen a better campaign ad for Trump. She's campaigning better for Trump than Trump is. First, let's talk about the down payment issue on the House. A lot of this stuff is infuriating, because they're treating the American public like idiots. She makes a proposal that is only half an equation. The first half is, here's a nice thing for you. The second half is missing, who pays for it? You saw this with student loan theft, described as forgiveness. Who paid for it? You paid for it. You see with immigration policy, who's footing the billions and all that free stuff? You're paying for it. Nothing is free. Nothing is free. And the sooner or later you figure that out, the better off you're going to be. And that's directed at Democrats who don't understand that these policies are going to sink this country. You know, if you cap prices, you increase scarcity by diminishing competition. People can call her a communist, but you gotta explain this, because the media won't ask the follow-up question. People can call her a communist, but you gotta explain this, because the media won't ask the follow-up questions. How do you plan on doing this? Please give me an example. Give me an example where industries got together in a room and decided to drastically increase prices. That doesn't exist. The only example they'll have is, a bodega raised prices on umbrellas when it rained. That's all they got. There is no payoff for industries to artificially inflate their prices, because the people who drive the prices are the consumers. That is, if you want to understand supply and demand, it's the consumers who drive the prices. There is absolutely no debate on this. There is not a single economist who would agree that this is the right thing to do. We can go and talk about Eastern Bloc countries. You can look at the cheap, terrible cars that they made and the appliances they made, but you already know that story. So how do you keep a debate alive if we know this is a fraudulent idea? You don't talk to economists. You listen to politicians or talking heads like me who have to do the research, because I'm sick and tired of hearing people pretend like they know what they're talking about on TV, but they don't. So you won't see economists on other shows, other networks, asking these questions. Like, can you give me an example of how this is done? What are the major industries? What is the right price? What is too high? What is too low? Can the government set prices based on not having a knowledge of an industry? What do you mean exactly by price gouging? How is that done beyond unique exceptions? Price gouging is a weak phrase directed at weaker minds.
Can I just add?
Bravo. Go ahead. Kamala has no time to answer pesky questions.
Gutfeld strongly criticized the media for failing to ask tough questions about Kamala Harris's policies and how they would actually be implemented. He argued that the media is protecting Harris from real scrutiny, allowing her to promote proposals without being seriously challenged on their substance or feasibility. According to him, this bias has created a larger pattern where Harris is supported, but her policies lack depth and real solutions. He went further, saying Harris's ineffective campaign and disconnect from economic reality have unintentionally become free advertising for Trump. In Gutfeld's view, her weak proposals and poor performance only make Trump appear more confident by comparison. Throughout the segment, there was a recurring theme of disappointment with Harris's record in office. Gutfeld and others pointed out that despite her years in power, she has failed to deliver on many promises. They argued that Harris is now campaigning on the same issues, like rising prices, that she had time to fix but didn't. Gutfeld drove this home by stressing that Harris's lack of action while in office makes her current campaign rhetoric sound hollow and insincere. Again and again, the panel returned to one central idea. Harris has had the chance to make real change, but her record shows she hasn't done enough on the very issues she's now highlighting as campaign themes. What do you think of today's video? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.